So today's talk is called The Cheat Sheet. And I wrote this talk, I wrote it myself, and I wrote it to help some personal family members. And I thought, you know what, this is good information. Maybe it can help everybody's family members. So what I tried to do was distill down the very general talks that we give into some really practical, in the moment suggestions. So I'm hoping that you'll find this a fairly useful talk. It's not very broad. It's quite focused on enhancing communication. So what I'm going to do is share my slides. Pete's going to mute anybody who isn't muted. We're going to ask you to just stay muted during the talk portion, but then we will open it for conversation. Okay, is the cheat sheet for cognitive stimulation and conversation. Talk about long titles, eh? That's what they like at the Alzheimer Society, long, clear titles. So let's get right into it. Talk a tiny bit about your brain. We've all got a brain. Yeah, obviously, it's the most vital organ in our body. No brain, no life. About 3 pounds in the average adult is what it weighs. It contains 100 billion neurons. Now, a neuron is just a fancy name for a nerve cell in the brain. And then the neurons, the brain cells, are shaped a little bit like trees. And if you think of the end of a tree, it has roots. Well, the end of a neuron has dendrites. And at the end of every one of those, there's something called a synapse. And there are 100 trillion synapses. Those numbers are so big, they really boggle comprehension. The point of the story here is A, how complex our brains are, and B, that we rely on our neurons and the synapses between the neurons for communication. So when damage occurs to a brain cell and it can't communicate with the next brain cell by sending an electric impulse from one synapse across the gap to the next synapse, then there's trouble. And what we want to do is we want to do our best to make sure that communication is as clear and easily followed as possible. So just a review, we often have new folks, so I just want to quickly remind folks, if you've heard it before, I apologize. But when we're talking about dementia, we're not talking about a specific disease. We're actually talking about a syndrome or a collection of symptoms. When somebody has dementia, then it means that they're going to have challenges with memory, language, judgment, reasoning, ability to perform daily tasks, and changes in personality and behavior that get worse over time. Down at the bottom, though, there's a little bit of, very little, but there's a little bit of good news. And it says there are reversible and irreversible causes of dementia. And that's absolutely true. I'm going to talk about some of the irreversible dementias, but I think it's important to know that there are situations that can make you look like you have dementia and you don't. You might have undiagnosed diabetes, undiagnosed thyroid disease. You might have medication interactions or a toxic buildup of medications. You might have normal pressure hydrocephalus. You might have atypical depression. You might just be constipated. You might have really bad nutrition. You might be low on your B vitamins. You might have a brain tumor. You might have Lyme's disease. There's this long list of other things that can make people look super confused. So please go, and if you are concerned about anybody, get them checked out in case it's reversible. If, though, it's one of the irreversible types of dementia, then we, no matter what type it is, we being the Alzheimer Society Waterloo Wellington, we are the go-to place for any type of dementia. And so the conversation that I'm going to have with you today is about having conversation with folks, no matter what type of dementia they have. And the common types that we see here at the Society are Alzheimer's disease, It's probably the most well-known type of dementia that there is. Tends to start with memory loss, tends to strike more women than men. The most common, or the most, it's just one type though, just one type. Then there are the frontotemporal diseases. They start in the temporal and front lobes of the brain, and they don't start with memory loss. You're going to see changes in language, judgment, reasoning, and behavior long before you see any memory impairment. Then there's something called Lewy body, and Lewy body dementia looks like a cross between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. There are great fluctuations in somebody's abilities cognitively that can change. And there are changes physically. People will have Parkinsonian symptoms, so there will be rigidity and stiffness and slowness of movement. Vascular dementia, very, very common. That is the most amenable to intervention. And actually, the number of cases of vascular dementia are decreasing worldwide as people take on better lifestyle habits. We can reduce our risk by being really heart healthy and having good heart lifestyle. Mixed dementia is when you have more than one type. Sad to say, you can have two. Common mix would be Alzheimer's and vascular dementia at the same time, or Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia at the same time. And then there are folks who are under the age of 65 who have been diagnosed with dementia, and that's referred to as young onset dementia. And the most common young onset dementias occur in Alzheimer's and the frontotemporal family. So those are the common types of dementia. No matter what type the person that you're here on behalf of has, you've come to the right place to get some information. So why a cheat sheet? Well, although the dementias look a little bit different at the beginning of the journey, as they progress, they become more and more similar. And as I just mentioned, these ideas, they're useful with many types of dementia. And what we want to do is we wanted to give you something really practical to sort of get you through while you can take more courses and learn more about dementia and communication. This is not the be all and end all. This is just sort of to keep you going while you acquire more knowledge along the journey. It's quite practical, it's pretty short, and it's easily shareable. That handout I gave you is only 2 pages. And you could easily print it off or email it to other family members or friends. So I'm going to ask you some true or false questions. And because we have you muted, I'm going to ask you to play the thumbs up or the thumbs down game. So true or false, and you can show me what you think. It is good stimulation for the person with dementia to try to recall things on command. What do you think? I'm seeing the thumbs. All right. And you were right. No, trying to get people to recall on demand is actually not a good plan for folks living with dementia. It's bad. The person living with dementia has no control over what they do and don't remember. So being asked to recall something can actually be very stressful, particularly if the memory just is not there. If their hippocampus has been damaged, then they cannot, even though they can talk to you and have conversation in the immediate moment, they cannot force their brain to put something into their memory. So again, true or false, we'll do the thumbs up, thumbs down. Drawing out memories by asking questions is exercise for the brain. We all know exercise is good for us. Well, actually, I hope I can't see all of you at once. Hope most thumbs were down. And if you struggle to recall something, it can actually stress you. And so stress is detrimental to the general ability to think. And so we definitely don't want to stress the person living with dementia. The idea that practice makes perfect, you've heard that phrase before, haven't you? Or use it or lose it. It works best for people with healthy brains when it comes to facts. So asking people to recall who is the prime minister right now and telling them it's Trudeau over and over and over is probably not going to help them. Instead, think how you can connect with them, focusing on connection and relationship that will allow the person to relax more and function better. Since, as I said, stress has a negative influence on your cognitive functioning, and that's true for all human beings. Here's another one, thumbs up or thumbs down. You can help someone recall either a specific event or details of an event by giving them clues one at a time to see if they can get it. I hope that you're sensing a trend here. Fact is that that's a thumbs down. As a rule of thumb, stimulating memory should not be done in a game show format. The earlier in the disease process, the more likely that will work for somebody. But as time progresses and as changes occur in folks' cognitive functioning, it becomes less and less of a viable option. So I suggest give the information the person needs to start a conversation. You can add details as the conversation goes on, but follow the lead of the person living with dementia. So here's a little example for you. If you're reminding them about seeing an owl, but they start talking about cardinals, then talk about cardinals. And you can circle back to owls later if you really need to or you really want to, or you can let the owls go. Just staying focused on one thing might not work for somebody, and trying to give them a hint, well, it was in a tree, well, it was in the park, you were wearing a blue shirt. Those things will not actually be helpful. True or false? Asking questions is a good and reliable way for the care partner to know how a person's cognition is doing. Thumbs down on that one. The fact of the matter is that assessing cognitive ability should never be part of someone's recreation and leisure time. And this is talking about how we're going to engage conversation to be supportive to people. So we don't want it to be a quiz, because quizzing somebody to see what they can and cannot answer, well, it has the potential to stress both of you. And the person living with dementia, they recognize it's a test, no matter how you look at it. It can also give you a really false picture, as people will have good times of day and less good times of day. They might recall earlier in the day, not recall later in the day. You never can tell. So I'm going to suggest that you avoid asking any questions that rely on short-term memory. Asking people with short-term memory loss questions can create several possible outcomes that we don't want. So if we ask questions that rely on short-term memory, the person cannot answer, so they might give a different type of answer. They might try to make a joke. They might try to cover their inability by using humor. They might try to deflect the question. They may give you an answer that's unrelated to your question, or you don't get a straight answer. So that's one thing that can happen. Or they might have to admit they don't remember. Well, I don't know. And that can be disheartening for both parties. Admitting that they don't know can be demeaning for the person living with dementia. And imagine if you got quizzed by numerous people numerous times throughout the day and you have to say, I don't know, over and over. Yeah. If we ask questions that rely on short-term memory, they may give you an answer, because people will recognize that it's a question and they recognize that you want something back from them, and they're going to do their best to give you a response. But you won't really know if the answer is accurate or not. It's not that the person is deliberately lying, but with memory impairment, they may inadvertently give incorrect information and that they believe is true. They believe it's true, but it's not. So wherever possible, you want to ask somebody with intact memory or seek the answer yourself. If you ask somebody, did you have lunch today? Probably they will say yes, whether they had lunch today or not. And they will firmly believe that they have lunch today. So that's not always the best way to get information. Here are some examples. You want to know if they took their meds. Do not ask them to bring the pill dispenser to you. Just go, look, take a peek yourself. You want to know if they ate their snack. Open the fridge and look where you left it. You want to know if they enjoyed their outing. Ask the person who took them about it. Don't try to quiz them. You might ask in a general way, I heard you went to the butterfly conservatory today. And if they come back with, no, I didn't, then you don't want to get in an argument. Yes, you did. You want to find out how the moment went from the person that took them, because they may have thoroughly enjoyed it in the moment and just forgotten about it when you're asking. You want to know if they did a chore? Go look at the job, look at the place. You have to be your own detective. Definitely, I would encourage all of us to slow down. People with dementia process more slowly. It's not that they stop processing, but it does slow down. So we have to give extra time for responses. It can take, at the very end stages, up to 10 seconds longer to process. And that will seem like an eternity to us, but we really need to kind of slow ourselves down. Pronouns can confuse. He, she, they, it, their, etc. If we use pronouns, it's very, very hard for somebody to follow. And I catch myself doing it all the time. I have to sometimes correct myself. What I've been doing to try to really alert myself to not using pronouns is I type out an email and then I reread the email. And every time I've used a pronoun, I go back and I put in the details. And it does make a difference in the clarity. So I'm going to give you some ideas. We're on the greetings page, some things to try and some things to maybe shy away from. So you'll notice the red and green, just trying to give you a subtle hint there with the colors. Things to avoid. The question, what's new? If I have memory impairment, I can't necessarily tell you what's new. I don't remember. I don't know what went on this morning. I don't have what's new for you. How did you sleep? Legit question. You want to know how they're feeling. But if I have memory impairment, I might not be able to tell you. What did you have for lunch or breakfast? Or, who called yesterday? Did you watch MASH last night? Those sorts of things. So instead, maybe you can start conversation by avoiding questions, but giving compliments or making statements. I've said here, you should give some sort of compliment. Oh, I really like that shirt you're wearing. Oh, I really like the flowers sitting on the table. They're not who gave them to you. They're beautiful. Make a comment on it, but don't quiz about it. Or some neutral statement like, oh, today, blue sky. It's gorgeous. I have sunshine. And you see, any reply will be correct if there are no questions involved. And you want to set folks up to feel successful at the beginning of your conversations, right from the get-go. So I've given you some examples here. And then you build off their reply to move the conversation along. So some conversation starters. I would avoid using the word remember. And it's a tough one. I work on this myself. It's hard. Do you remember? I remember. Or remember I told you? Those sorts of things to start a conversation probably won't get you off to as positive an interaction as you had hoped for. Maybe you want to start another way. If you want to spark some chat, some conversation, some reminiscence, I would suggest you use an I statement. Instead of saying, I remember, indicating in a subtle way, you don't, but I do. I was thinking of the time. And then you can spin whatever story it is. But instead of that, word remember seems to be quite a charged word. And it can put people in a bit of a panic just to hear, oh, I have to remember something. I'm supposed to remember something. Do I remember this? So I would give them the tools they need. If I was thinking about the time we went to the Buffalo Zoo and we fed peanuts to the elephants and, one of the kids dropped their ice cream. If I give what I'm remembering as conversation starters, they can pick up on those and move forward. So questions that need memory. We've got a definite theme going here. What did you do today? That's a normal question that we might ask a friend, a partner, a child, somebody who has a healthy brain. But it's not necessarily going to get you where you want to go if somebody has cognitive impairment. What did you see on TV? Where did we go earlier? Where did you go earlier? Anything that relies on short-term memory, I try to avoid it. Again, give a comment on what was done earlier and allow them to take the conversation where their mind goes. Instead of, what did you see on TV? Oh, I hear you've been enjoying MASH or Jeopardy or the Olympics or whatever they had been watching recently. Oh, I appreciate you kept me company when we went to Lee Valley today, or we went to the grocery store today, or we went to the hardware store, or wherever you went to. If you can feed it to them that way, you're telling them that they went somewhere, that you two went together, and it's not demanding that they dredge that information up. Questions that assume they know what you're referring to. So avoid, what do you think of the headlines? And I know that that is certainly a hot topic right now. We have some very concerning headlines. And you would think with such an emotional connotation to the headlines that folks might remember them, but not necessarily so. And again, it's not anything deliberate. It has to do with the fact that what they see and what they hear has to go into the hippocampus, to go to the cortex, to go to long-term storage. And if their hippocampus is damaged, it's like a Teflon brain. Nothing sticks. And so they might not retain the information. Or, what do you think of what happened to so-and-so? So I'm going to suggest instead, maybe you can instigate conversation by saying, X happened, whatever it happened, and you give them the story to comment on. And then what do you think of that? Sarah's cat ran away. Ugh, she's awfully concerned. Do you think the cat will come back? Give them the story, then engage in some sort of conversation. Or make some general statement and see what they say back. The Humane Society has moved. It's got a new location. We've got some paper, some shredded paper to take out to them. We're going to have to go somewhere new and different. Give them some information and then spark the conversation. Always, I love this last one. It's not last because it's least. I love this last one. Solicit an opinion or advice. People lose what we refer to as semantic memory. In other words, the memory for facts. Who is the prime minister right now? Exactly what year was so-and-so born? But people don't lose for a long time, they will still have wisdom and knowledge. And so asking their opinion on something is pretty safe. Asking their advice about something can actually be a very positive experience for them. They're a partner in the conversation and they get to give of themselves. So here's a little summary for you. Asking questions, it's often our go-to plan to stimulate conversation. But when acting with folks who have memory impairment, it's not obviously the recommended technique. And you don't want your visit or your conversation to start out as a quiz fest, because it makes for an imbalanced conversation. And you can make the person nervous if they can't tell you what you want to know. Summary 2, don't assume they're going to remember things. A person with dementia might not remember things, even if they are very recent, even if they are 5 minutes ago, or even if they are emotionally significant. Incrementally prompting people to remember is not always an exercise for the brain. It can be a stress inducer. And unfortunately, the more stressed someone is, the less they're able to think clearly and remember. So we all have stress. We don't want to put the person living with dementia under stress. We don't want to be under stress. And if you feel like this zebra that's coming unraveled here, if that's your stress level, I would encourage you to think about ways you can reduce stress. And I would also encourage you to use all of the services that the Alzheimer Society can offer to you. And so I'll just take you on a little tour of some of our services. We have supportive counseling. We have a wonderful social work team. They're all MSWs. We have just awesome people that you can have phone appointments with. As we're opening up now, as COVID is finishing, you'll be able to make face-to-face appointments as well. We have a variety of education sessions. Obviously, you know that because you're here at an education today. And we will start to be introducing in person. That will come over the next little while, so stay tuned. We offer something called the Music Project. Because we know that as the journey of dementia unfolds, people often lose language, but they never, ever lose the ability to appreciate and enjoy music. Music reaches an emotional center. The language of music is not housed where the language of words is in the brain. And the ability to appreciate and involve themselves with music is usually left intact far, far, far into the disease process. And so the Music Project is where we offer a little iPod and earphones and a charger. And we find out what kind of music they like, because not just any music will do. It's got to be music that is of some significance or meaning or enjoyment to them. And we make a personalized playlist. This is something you can do. You don't necessarily need us to do it for you, but we offer that. And it's like an extended library loan, because we offer you the iPod and the music for as long as it's of value to you and the person. And we just ask that you return it when it's no longer an option that you're using. We have all sorts of social and recreational programming. We have games hours. We have tea time. We have peer connections. We have all arts, creative arts. We have intergenerational programming. We have music programming. And they're going to start a garden program. There's always something happening at the Alzheimer Society. And so at the moment, this social recreational programming is offered virtually, and it's available over Zoom. But again, that will ramp up into in-person as time marches on. Finding your way, I've got a slide about that, so I won't talk about that in great detail here. I do want to promote Minds in Motion. And for anybody who's not familiar with Minds in Motion, it is the best of both worlds, because it gives you everything in one program. Minds in Motion is where the person living with dementia and a care partner come together. At the moment, it's virtual, but we are getting right back into offering it in person. And it's available 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. So if you're working, you can come to the Saturday one, Saturday mornings. And it hits a lot of targets because it involves exercise. The first 45 minutes is a specialized exercise program. It can be done sitting or standing. It's geared specifically for the person living with dementia, but it gives them a bit of a workout, because we know that doing exercise stimulates your brain, it stimulates your heart, It pumps extra oxygen up to your brain. It gets you going and thinking. After the 45 minutes, there's 45 minutes of sort of cognitive stimulation and social interaction. And it's like a support group for everybody, because people living with dementia are meeting other people living with dementia, and care partners are meeting other care partners. And they're all in a very safe and supportive environment. So people are very comfortable to speak, relax, and be themselves. And if you are interested in Minds in Motion, it just takes a phone call to the society. That's all you have to do. We've got a variety of events. We're going to have some fundraising events coming up soon. Before you know it, it'll be the Walk for Memories. And I encourage you to gear up your running shoes, lace up those shoes and come walking. We have a variety of resource libraries, and our group sessions are like support groups. We also have group sessions for education. So there's always something happening. Finding your way. I said that I'd talk about this in a little more detail. Finding your way was brought into being because, unfortunately, there is a high risk of somebody living with a form of dementia to go missing, to become disoriented to time and to place. And so the stat there says 6 out of 10 people become disoriented and can easily become lost. And that's a scary thought for everybody involved. So the OPP, the Alzheimer Society, the Ontario government all got together, and the regional police forces, and they designed findingyourwayontario.ca. And there's a live link in those slides I sent you. I can get my cursor to come down here. There's a live link, and you can click on that and it'll take you to the website. There's a lot of information to read about keeping folks safe, things you can do to support them in the home, things you can do in the community. There's information about what to do if somebody should go missing. And there's an ID kit that you can fill out ahead of time. It talks about the different reasons people might go missing. And we actually have a talk about that on our website. It also gives you a chance to take 4 online modules. So at your own convenience, at your own time, there are 4 15-minute modules that you can take, all about safety out and about. And it's available, as you can see, in a variety of languages. We also have, we call them ECs, Enhancing Care Programs. There are 2 different ones. There's one called Teach and one called Carers. And one is 4 weeks, one is 8 weeks. I can attach this information to the evaluation that I send out. So for folks who have some background information about dementia, but would like to certainly explore a little further and learn with others and sort of get, again, this is so practical. It's brainstorming about your particular situation. It's not a general talk like Janine or I might give to you. It's very targeted. And you might have heard me, if you've heard me talk, say this before. I certainly want to thank anybody who's made a donation to the Alzheimer Society Waterloo Wellington. It helps us keep all our services at no charge. So when you call us or you email us, we just say, what do you need? How can we help? And we do that because we fundraise 60% of our budget every year. So if you're ever in a position to donate to us in the future, I'm going to thank you now. I'll thank you ahead of time. And every time you either go on our website to donate or you make the check out to the Alzheimer Society Waterloo Wellington, those magic W's, it stays local. The funds will stay local. This is our contact information. And for anybody who might be living in Guelph, I just wanted to draw to your attention the new address. We have just moved. This is my very first day in my very first office. I haven't been in the office in almost 2 years now. I've worked at home the entire time. And while I was working at home, they built a new building and we have moved to Wellington Street. So we are now very near the corner of Gordon and Wellington, right by the McDonald's and the liquor store. Those are the best landmarks I can give you. What I want to draw your attention to on this slide, not only is the new address that we're at, but don't come without an appointment, folks. Don't just run over. We're not sort of open for an open house at this point. We are not unpacked yet, not fully unpacked. Give us a call and we can make arrangements. But the three icons, the Facebook, the Twitter, and then the YouTube icon, if you go to our website, and again, it's a live link, you went to our website and you scroll to the bottom of the first page, you would see the YouTube icon. And that would allow you, when you click on it, to access social programming, recreational programming, educational programming, the talk on finding your way. Eventually, this talk will be there as well if you wanted to share it with anybody else. So those are sort of the slides that I wanted to take us through. And I just want to bring up the cheat sheet and go through that together. So I'm going to stop that. Pete, was there anything in the box before I go on? Any chat came up? No, perfect. Okay. Let me get the cheat sheet out here. Okay. So this is the sheet that we handed out to you. It's called the cheat sheet for cognitive stimulation and conversation. And so we set it up to bust myths. There used to be a TV show called The Mythbusters. I don't know if you ever saw it, but here are some myths that we're going to bust. Let's start. And you know the answers to this because we went through them in the slides, but just want to make it short and sweet in case you're sharing this with somebody. So the idea that it's good stimulation for the person to try to recall things on command, it's not really good. It can cause stress, drawing out memories, how to get them out. So what we've given you are the shortest possible synopsis of the facts that we went through. And then at the end, here are some things to avoid: asking questions that rely on memory, and give you a little summary. And then we've got the avoid and the things to try. So what I did is I sort of took the slides and rearranged and condensed, put them all on these two sheets, because it's helpful if everybody in the family, has the same information the same way at the same time. So this might be something that you feel you'd like to share with others, and it might make conversations easier. So I'm going to stop the share, and this is the opportunity to unmute yourselves, to ask questions or to make comments. I tried to leave us a lot of time for conversation today. And so I'm going to throw it open to you folks.